Hi, and welcome to the HiSET Equivalency and Proficiency Update for August 2025. My name is Stephanie Bauer, and I am the HiSET Account Manager, and happy to be presenting today. Our agenda for today includes topics for both equivalency and proficiency, a test security refresher, live online proctoring, equivalency specific topics, and proficiency specific topics. The first updates we'll have are updates for equivalency and proficiency. Test takers have 3 attempts per subtest every 6 months. January 1st to June 30th will now equal 3 attempts, and July 1st to December 31st will now equal 3 attempts. This is due to the forms year is now officially July 1st to June 30th. The official practice test 12 for Spanish will also be available by the end of this year. English versions were released last summer. Paper-based test updates. All paper-based test initial shipments were set to arrive around the first week in June. Reminder, only sites with actual paper test takers in 2024 were automatically sent material. If you did not test in 2024, you will need to order material. If your site needs additional materials or needs paper-based test materials, please use the web link in the note-taking guide to order. This link is also located on hiset.org under the Resources for Test Centers and is the 9th box on the page. Statistical report updates. There are 2 statistical report updates that will be produced this year. This will be the last year for the calendar year report, January 2024 to December 2024. This report will be available shortly. Moving forward, the statistical report will be produced on the academic year, which is July 1st through June 30th. That report's targeted availability will be in November. HiSET.org updates. HiSET.org has been refreshed and updated. Material organized for fewer clicks to the My HiSET account. Multiple locations to access, including a login button on the right-hand corner. And step-by-step instructions on account creation are available, as well as access to a short video. We took a lot of test taker feedback in mind with the fewer clicks. Resources are also now organized by user. So test taker, test center, educator, recruiter, advocate, and research. Since we've talked to everyone last year, we've also introduced the HiSET Community Advisory Board. The advisory board's purpose is to bring together various stakeholders to support the resources, programs, and services available to HiSET test takers and educators, playing a key role in identifying the evolving needs of adult learners, educators, and their local communities, and shaping the development and improvement of HiSET resources. The overall Community Advisory Board vision is to create a future where the HiSET program empowers adult learners to achieve their educational goals through accessible, effective, and continuously improved resources and services, supported by a collaborative community of educators, stakeholders, and advocates. Along with the HiSET Community Board, we also have a HiSET Community Manager. We are thrilled to have Marquetta Vital join us as the HiSET Community Manager. In addition to her work on the Community Advisory Board, she's currently welcoming new adult educators to HiSET while updating information for those currently in our community. There will be many future updates that will want to have good contact information for these resources. Developing webinar programs, both on demand and custom content for our HiSET community, and developing our HiSET Opportunity Network, partners, and resources for what's next with HiSET test takers. Marquetta can be reached at hisetatulteducation@psionline.com. We have some social media updates as well. We've expanded our social media to now include LinkedIn and YouTube, while maintaining our presence on Instagram, Facebook, and X. We have recently added a digital yearbook that test takers, educators, and administrators can participate in, and those links are available in the note-taking guide. Test taker registration reminders. We want to make sure that we're providing some of these reminders so our test takers can receive the documents that they need in the format in which they have requested them. Many times this happens when we don't have current or correct information during the registration process. The first thing we want to call attention to is that the name entered on the MyHiSet account is the name that will appear on all documents. So some examples include Mickey Mouse that is entered in all lowercase letters will appear on the document as Mickey Mouse. Mickey, Mickee, mouse, will appear entered even if it's misspelled Mickee versus Mickey. And then finally, using all capital letters for Mickey Mouse will appear as entered in all uppercase as Mickey Mouse, all capital letters. If the credential is printed in all lowercase and the test taker wants it to appear as Mickey Mouse with capital M for Mickey and capital M for Mouse, the test taker will need to pay for a new document after the name has been corrected with HiSet. It's very important that the name is corrected with HiSet first. Parchment is unable to make this correction without HiSet correcting the name and resending the data. Some additional test taker registration reminders continued. Apartment numbers are required for delivery. If a test taker does not enter an apartment number in the address field of their MyHiSet account and the document is not able to be delivered, the test taker must pay for a new document after the address has been updated by HiSet and resent to Parchment. This would be one of our #1 inquiries in terms of people not receiving their expected credential. If documents are sent to an adult education program, the site name may be entered on line 2 of the address rather than line 1. Using line 1 will cause the record to fail Parchment address validation, and then that will cause additional delay. Incorrect country codes will also cause the test taker record to be rejected with Parchment for upload. An example is selecting Italy versus the United States when setting up the test taker profile. These will cause delays to the initial delivery of the credential and will also incur additional time while we're making the corrections. Test taker security refresher. Over the course of the year, it's very important to take a step back and refresh yourself on appropriate test security processes. One of the processes that we want to talk about today is active proctoring. Active proctoring is required for all testing environments. Proctors must be visible. We recommend for 25 test takers or fewer, at least 2 staff are recommended. More may be required based on accommodations scheduled during a testing session. An example of that is 25 test takers with a private room accommodation will require 3 staff members. We have 2 types of incidents that we'd like to talk about and give a refresher on. So for incident type descriptions for basic, we have basic incidents. Test taker arrives late for admission and is not permitted to take the exam. Often the test center administrator will determine how late is too late, and those policies can be local. Test taker unable to test due to unacceptable identification. Loud noise does not affect the exams. An example of that would be a door closing loudly, but only happening once and not causing a disturbance within the testing room. Test taker becomes ill during the exam. Emergency closing of the test center, or the test taker complains about the testing process. So those are basic incidents. A quick reminder for all incidents, basic and security incidents, submit both a test center report form and an incident report form so we're able to follow up on those items. Moving on to incident type descriptions for security. Test security incidents include removal of test questions from the room, use of prohibited aids, A prohibited aid could be notes or something that they've seen on the room. For example, if there's an instructional poster in the room, it must be taken down. Impersonating another test taker, tampering with test equipment, theft of test equipment or materials, cheating by any method, use of any electronic devices, and that would include smartwatches, smartphones, anything that has not been identified as a medically necessary device, test taker creating a disturbance, and the test taker having to be escorted from the facility. These are all security incidents and would both need an incident report and a security report form. Live online proctoring. As we have an increase in test takers choosing live online proctoring, and we do have test takers in the proficiency program who mainly take live online proctoring, we wanted to share some live online proctoring considerations. While many test takers benefit from this mode of testing, avoid recommending this option if the test taker has read aloud accommodations. This may only be provided at a test center in a private room setting. That is no exception. We need to be able to control the environment, and in a test at home environment, we would not be able to see if anybody is recording or if anybody is in the next room. The test taker may require additional support during the testing process. Someone who will have a lot of questions or need a lot of support will likely not be a good candidate for live online proctoring. If the test taker is uncomfortable with direct one-on-one monitoring by a human proctor during this testing session, for live online proctoring, live proctors will continuously be watching the test taker. If that creates additional anxiety for your test taker, we do not recommend live online proctoring. The test taker does not have a private space for testing. This is critical as a private space is required. And if another person, be it accidental or not, is observed while the test taker is testing, it will result in immediate termination of the test. Also, finally, if a test taker does not meet the minimum requirements for hardware or internet connectivity, we should not be recommending live online proctoring as a mode of testing for that test taker. In terms of minimum requirements for live online proctoring, we'll start first with minimum computer requirements. Meeting the minimum computer requirements to take live online proctored exams is critical. If these are not met, the test taker will be unable to test. Minimum requirements are a personal computer using Windows 10 or higher, or an Apple computer using Mac OS 12 or higher. A microphone connected to or built into the computer. Speakers connected to or built into the computer. Connected headset or earbuds are prohibited. A video camera connected to or built into the computer. An internet connection speed of 3 Mbps or higher. And administrative access to the device. These are the minimum requirements that are needed in order to use live online proctoring. In the note-taking guide, we will also share a link to the tool that they can use ahead of their test to check their computer requirements. And we do strongly advise that every test taker, once they've registered, do the computer compatibility check to make sure they do have a correct machine. Our environmental requirements are next. So for environmental requirements, these must also be met. Testing space must be free from clutter, including walls. If testing in an educational space, posters must be removed. Space must be private, free of interruptions. So using a room with a door that can be closed is recommended. Space must also be quiet as possible, limiting any background noise or audible distractions. As we said before, proctors will end the test immediately as a security violation if another person is observed during the test session without exception. Facial visibility during testing. The test taker must remain visible during the entire testing session. In addition to our live proctor, a software feature will attempt to detect the test taker's face throughout the session. There are times the system will not recognize the test taker while in front of the web camera, and this might happen due to poor lighting, either too light or too dark, a poor camera angle, not facing forward directly or facing in any kind of awkward space where you can't directly see the person side on, large or reflective eyeglasses. It will cause a glare that will often have a disconnect between what the software is able to detect and their true position, or long hair covering the test taker's eyes. The first time facial visibility is obscured, the live proctor will give a warning. Future instances will be considered a security violation resulting in termination of the exam. Test termination for major violations. So we do have two types of violations. We have major violations and minor violations. For major violations, live proctors observing major violations will terminate the exam, and these violations include covering the camera, explicit behavior, leaving the room for any reason, someone else has appeared on camera, and this would include anybody who may be walking behind the test taker. So if they have an open door facing a hall and someone walks through, that is included and will be considered a major violation. Observed use of reference material, taking a picture or video of the screen, talking or reading out loud, or using a mobile device. Test warnings for minor violations. Live proctors observing minor violations will issue one warning before terminating the exam. These violations include explicit language, violation of the visibility requirement that we talked about earlier. That also includes looking somewhere else or out of camera view. Reading questions aloud, someone else has appeared on the camera, and talking out loud. So for minor violations, again, you will receive a warning before the exam is terminated, but repeated use of these violations will result in termination. Equivalency topics. Live online proctoring language supports is something that we have recently started to pilot. California has been piloting language supports for live online proctoring since May 1st, allowing test takers to communicate and receive communication via chat with PSI proctors and support in their preferred languages. Languages available include Arabic, German, English, Spanish, Spanish Latin America, Spanish Mexico, French, French Canadian, Indonesian, Italian, Japanese, Korean, Portuguese Brazil, simplified Chinese, and traditional Chinese. Additional information for language supports. The test content remains available in English and Spanish only. So while the test taker will be able to communicate with the proctor or any support in their chosen language, the test content will remain English and Spanish only. Our translation is provided by Amazon Web Services. And once the test taker selects the language and moves to the next screen, the language cannot be changed. So if a test taker selects French and types in Spanish, the translation feature will not work. And of course, since they've moved on from the first screen, it cannot be changed. Check-in screens, warning screens, and verification screens will display in the language selected. So all through the check-in period, they will be able to see their selected language. Language supports are limited to written interactions, so no spoken language support is available. Proficiency topics. We have a fee update for proficiency. On July 1st, the following proficiency fees updated. The state administration fee updated to $34 and the test fee to $110. We also want to remind everyone that superintendents may designate another staff member to receive the quarterly rosters for proficiency passers. This link will be available in the note-taking guide. Thank you for listening. You can always learn more about us at hiset.org.